Ah. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Strike First Media. This is also a Kings of Pop Culture discussion about Season 6, Part 3. But you guys thought these guys would be the special guests. They are. But we also have another surprise that
Drum roll.
We don't know.
I do want to introduce. Hayden Schlossberg.
Oh, yeah. I knew it. I knew it.
Oh my God.
How's it going, Hayden?
Glad to enter this kingdom over here.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
I had a vibe.
So,
I said it's Hayden.
Well, I always watch the videos on YouTube and see different reactions, and you guys always have fun reactions, and it's interesting hearing all your stuff. So, jumping on, just getting in there as one of the fans.
Awesome. And
That's
dude.
awesome.
You guys are
That's
a
so-
rarity when it comes to, I feel like, people who create films and TV shows, because I feel like you guys care
Oh yeah.
more about the fans than the usual people in the industry, I feel like, and you take the time to really get engaged with fans.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with like this particular property, is something that we loved as kids, and we feel like we're fans first and foremost. And then I think just the fact that it started on YouTube, and so like we would go to YouTube and you could see comments on the episodes back in the day, and you could see like reactions and reviews and stuff like that. And I guess for us, like, I'm used to the movie world, the feature world, where I would make a movie, go into the audience and see the audience laugh or get that kind of satisfaction. And with TV, you don't have that, except if you look at the social media sites and YouTube and all that. And then once you get into that world, it's kind of like the fan in me comes out and wants to engage. So it's cool.
That's awesome, because like I know myself and all my boys here, they really appreciate what you do, and it's a huge moment.
Yes.
We appreciate it. So, boys, what did we think about Season 6?
No pressure.
I mean, before we even go into that, I just want to say this is incredible in and of itself. Like, I didn't think when I put this squad together way back when we all got together and discussed the show over the years, that we'd actually be sitting here with one of the creators on air talking about this show. And we've all, we're all of different ages and different backgrounds, but to have a show like this that has reached us in so many different ways, whether it was from the Karate Kid trilogy, whether it was from the show itself, just having all our different stories sort of interwoven as we've watched and gone on this journey to see what you guys have created over these last few years. And obviously we've seen a lot of interesting movies out there. To see a sequel to a story that everyone has great memories with, whether they grew up with it with their parents or whatever the case may be, to see it treated with such love and care is such a rarity. And just for me, I want to say thank you to you, Hayden, and of course extend that to John and Josh and everyone else, because very rarely has a show impacted me the way this show has, and I'm sure all the guys here feel the same. I mean, how I'm literally in a Johnny over there and Robbie here, like we've got such a love for this show that it extends wherever it could go in the future. And I just want to say thank you for making it a reality for all of us. It's brought all of us together, and we've enjoyed talking about this show over the years.
Well, thank you. And it's crazy because, John and Josh and I, we had careers prior to this. Karate Kid was just a thing we liked, but we were making comedies and movies, and this just became something that when we started making it, it was just like we started to realize, wait a second, like there is like really classic storytelling and like legendary icons in this franchise. And it's like one of those things where you can dress up, there are logos, there are, it has that Star Wars, Star Trek kind of, iconography that, creates a special kind of fandom, and didn't quite appreciate that as we, you know, got into this. It was just kind of a fun idea of, you know, taking the bully from the Karate Kid and telling his story. And, you know, like in the process, it is like, it was our chance of doing something like, you know, what they did with Star Wars, you know, and hopefully we did as good a job. I don't know what you guys think about it. Just joking.
Oh, you did way better, my friend. You have
Not a high bar.
way better.
No, but
That's not a high bar.
I think we realized it as we got creative control of it, that like, oh my God, like this is something that is huge, that it may not be like on the level of like box office success of Star Wars, but it's like a portion of it. It's not like a small indie movie. And it, you know, it's been fun like seeing that build, and then like seeing you guys talking about it. It is like, you know, we kind of brought that you know, these characters back in a way, and you know, with Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai and Eagle Fang and people switching sides, it was the type of story that you could like really get into as a fan and show it by like how you know, what you look like, and go into conventions and all that stuff. So it's been awesome. Thank you for doing these. I've definitely seen, you know, you guys talk about stuff before. It's fun hearing what you guys like and don't like.
Definitely opinionated.
At the end of the day, like, no matter what you think about any episode of the show, I can tell you, like, it all builds off of each other, and you know, you kind of need one episode to justify what happens later. So it's been fun, but curious to hear what you guys think about, you know, the final season, and you know, we could talk about whatever you guys want to talk about.
Man, let's just get it all out there. The boat scene.
You knew that was coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Cole,
Yes,
go.
I just want to know what was like the purpose between the crease and the silver boat scene and the explosion at the end. I think everybody wants to
first, like, let's just talk about that scene, and that I'll get into the genesis of it. But what do you guys think of that moment, and you know, your thoughts on it, good or bad?
So
it felt out of place. It felt like Breaking Bad for a minute. I was like, wow, we went from the grounded karate show to this Breaking Bad like 80s action movie thing. I guess that's what you guys were going for. But you know what? It was surprising. It was surprising.
Is that like a controversial thing you feel like in terms of our final episodes?
I think that's like really most what I've seen in other forums. Like most people did not like the boat scene. I'm just saying or whatever. Like I think it was just out of nowhere, in my opinion, Hayden. But like, you know, maybe you can explain to the people, like, since you're the creator.
I can. What do the rest of you guys think? I mean, just
so one thing that I'll say, I feel like when it came to that boat scene, I was when it came to actually analyzing it, the way I always looked at it, I knew that people would find it out of place and things. But for me, the way I looked at it, it was like, I liked the story aspect of it. The fact that, you know, it was Kreese finally, you know, being like that father figure that he always was to Johnny, sort of like protecting him. That's the aspect I like. And then obviously when it happened, when I first watched it, I was like, oh, okay, sweet, okay, fair enough. But it wasn't in the sense of like, oh, that was terrible. It was just like, oh wow, I never saw that coming. But okay,
I didn't see that one coming.
Didn't see that coming.
Anybody else? Just have a.
No, I mean, just to bounce off that, I really love the intent of like Kreese indirectly saving Johnny, because there was like so many theories like Kreese is gonna save Johnny from Silver stabbing him and like jump in the middle. I'm like, I think him indirectly saving Johnny and Johnny not even knowing it is a really good execution and idea.
Great redemption.
Yeah, so I like that aspect of it.
Well, here's what I'll say. You know, we had an approach with this show. I a lot of times will reference Rocky. In that every season we did kind of like want to make it feel like things are turned up a notch, like from the previous season. And, there's a danger in that. The danger is you get to a fantastic, less grounded place. Now, we knew, though, going into it from season 1 that we wanted to bring Terry Silver back, and that Terry would kind of organically bring a bigness to our stories. And so it was a choice. Like, we could have just said, no, forget about those things, focus on the original. But if you're going to bring Terry back, you got to bring, some of what made his character likable, and in my mind, which is that he's willing to take teenage karate stories to a like a place where you could die, where it's like, he's Daniel's on a cliff, and it's like that, like he'll die unless
a karate tournament.
they're gonna kill him unless he enters a karate tournament. That happens in this universe, right? So I mean, our attitude was, it's like, what's the level of believability, that we could take this to the high, like, how can we make this, turn it up a notch each season, make it bigger and bigger and crazier? But, for us, it was like, it's not like we went from 0 to 60. It was like a gradual thing throughout every season. Again, I'll just, I talk about the Rocky franchise in the sense that, like, Rocky 3 felt a little bit bigger than the other Rockies. Even though Rocky's a classic, it was just like they made it a little bit more of a spectacle. And then you had to, on top of that, have a scarier villain in Drago. So and then in Rocky 5, like, he was poor again, and it was kind of on the streets, and it just kind of, the stakes felt lower. And it was just like the momentum of the franchise went down, and I didn't want to do that. And John and Josh didn't want to do that. Again, using Karate Kid Part 2 as an example, what I like about it is the stakes got higher. It's like, this isn't just for points, this is for life. Then in Karate Kid 3, it's like, now we're back at a tournament again. And like,
you guys made that look a lot better within the show. I just want to say, like, season 3, especially, you guys made that film look way better. Like, it has the minerals there, but you strengthen that so much by what you added.
Well, we had to. It was like, okay, we're sometimes it's
like to the death tournament.
Yeah, they have, it's like, I've seen these like contests where it's like, hey, make a meal out of like these 6 ingredients, and like one of them is jelly beans and the other is like whatever, and you're just like, you're taking these things and you're like, okay, well, how do we make this in 2020, whatever it was, a good story? And so just, going back to the boat, like, I mean, season 5, there was a sword on size fight, and that was always that was always meant to be. It's always frustrating. Our budget was never what was in our heads. Like, in our minds, like, Terry Silver had a place that was on the top of the valley, overlooking the valley down below, and like there would be this like chosen silver fight for like literally the soul of the valley. And like for us, that that was a pretty wild, crazy thing, that last episode of season 5. And you can say like, oh my god, like, where is the like the show is going to kind of unbelievable places. But again, I just felt like every step of the way a notch was turned up that made sense, so that now we were in season 6. And we were like, okay, well, how do we make this the biggest season ever? One was a world tournament, and doing something that, when you go back and you watch these shows, or if you watch it with somebody who hasn't seen it before, it does get bigger with each season. The scope gets bigger. And I think we liked that. But to go back to Rocky, Rocky 5 sucked, but Rocky Balboa was good. It went back to the core of what the Rocky franchise was. And so we tried to kind of skip over Rocky 5. Our last season has Rocky 4 vibes. You have this international, global feel that's bigger. And I think that, with Terry Silver, he's that bigness. We wanted, to, in a way, the boat scene represents as the the highest notch the show has gone. And from that, but as soon as he dies, or well, let's say, we never see the body. I want to believe. I want to believe.
I knew
but,
it.
But I'll just say, as soon as the boat explodes, then you're back into like episode 1, and like we're finishing off in like what this was all about, which was a karate tournament in the valley,
And I love that.
It all happens to be like a bigger stage, but it's the same stage. And so that was the mentality in it. It's like, okay, well, how do we end this wild Terry Silver story with the biggest bang that we possibly can? And the bang is an explosion, and it's on a yacht. And it wasn't like so much like, oh, let's do like a cheesy 80s thing. Like, we're never trying to be cheesy. We're not afraid of being cheesy. Like, if it's organic, like things like teen romance and different things like involving, parents and students and teachers and students, like, can be corny, but that's baked into the franchise. So like sometimes it's like you like a little cheese, sometimes you like a little corn.
It makes it fun.
But that was the upshot. Like, and we just felt like early on it was like, that's as big as the show goes. It's just it gets to a crazy place. We're always thinking like, what's the penultimate episode? And we felt like that was like a crazy penultimate episode, and we had a lot of exciting stuff for the finale. So there you have it.
There we go.
I gotta ask this.
I got my answer.
What one of my favorite parts of part 2 was seeing you pop up as the Terry Silver's lawyer. I know you're a Terry Silver super fan. I've seen you rock around with that chain at the premiere.
Yeah,
I know you're a big super
RJ and
fan.
Evan have them.
So what went into ultimately getting you the role of being the lawyer?
I think just when I realized that Terry, what his fate was going to be on that boat, I just kind of wanted to jump into the story and warn him and get him off that. And so I can honestly say, like, I did everything I can to help Terry out. But it was just like, I love the comedy of trying to justify Terry Silver. And we actually did a pretty decent job where it's like, you see kind of from his perspective, there's a lot that makes sense, like in, that Daniel kind of, by bringing Chosen there and basically sabotaging his business. I mean, it makes sense for him to retaliate. At the same time, it makes sense for...
You told him to back down.
He did.
Yeah, that was I'll just say, like, season 5 was just a fan fiction of what would have happened if Terry Silver won Karate Kid 3. And
This is a good example of how to do it.
It was kind of like, we'll always have season 5. We'll always have this moment where Terry is on top, and like the valley is dominated by him, and his dream is being
Paying off that Karate Kid 3 line.
Yeah, it's just like Terry's dream is becoming a reality. It's just kind of fun. So I mean, listen, it's like, you only, who knows whether or not we get to revisit the Terry Silver character or not. So it was just an opportunity to be in a scene with him. I always like the idea of being in the villain's, like, henchman world. So it was fun getting in there, and I've always like wanted to act, and that just felt like exactly my wheelhouse.
That's awesome. Real quick before we continue on, we got a super chat from Stuart. Shout out to Stuart.
Wow.
Thank you so much, man.
Stuart, you legend.
Stuart says, "This is awesome. Thank you, Hayden, and the rest of the Cobra Kai team for creating such an awesome show. It's been a real breath of fresh air in the current state of Western media for me personally. Thank you so much."
Thank you, Stuart. That's awesome.
Thank you, Stuart.
Yes.
Takes.
I agree with exactly what he says. It's a brand new breath of fresh air for everyone. This show, like, I remember how all of us met. Like, me and RJ, we spoke a lot about this way back when. It was just after like a couple of sequels came out of some other movies and franchises, and we were just kind of. And then I saw the trailer, as did we all, for like Johnny and Daniel going on the mat in the first ever trailer, and it was like,
Yeah.
and then watched it and just hooked him. And now look where we're at now. Like, so
it was so difficult to sell the show in the early days because
It was.
it was like, first of all, we're comedy guys. Everyone expects comedy from us, and it makes sense. I mean, there is comedy on the show. If there was no comedy on the show, you guys wouldn't like it. But we knew that it was like we were also taking the world seriously, and so it's like, how do you convey that like the Karate Kid is back, but also, you know, it's its own thing and this kind of comedy. And there was always like, it was always tough, you know, in those early days with YouTube of like trying to figure out what the trailer should be. Like sometimes you make it feel big, but then it feels cheesy. I don't know. It was just like, let's just put it out there and hope everyone sees what we're seeing. But you guys, when did you start doing these things? Like what after what season did you guys start this?
Right after
Season 3.
just after
Season 3.
Yeah, it was around that time.
It was the hype for season 4, wasn't it?
Season 4 for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Season
for
3.
for some of us, it started way earlier because it was like way back, like between season 2 and 3, because there was that period of time where, you know, obviously Miguelito went over the railing. And then, you know, it was just that stretch of time. The season 3 trailer came out, and I was like, you know what? I haven't uploaded in nearly 5 months. I'll put a random video up. Instantly overnight, like 10K views, and I was like, oh, I got something good here. And then just kept doing it, did streams, brought a couple of these guys on for the live Q&As, and obviously RJ and Danny were the first two. So I was like, you know, you guys seem pretty cool, you know, you wanna come back again? And then we just kept building and building, like how you said with Cobra Kai, expanding as the show progressed on. This is where we're at now. There's like 12 of us now. And it all started just by talking about the show over the years. I think majority of the conversations I've had with these guys aren't even about what we're getting up to in the day, Miguel or Robbie, or, you know, just stuff to do with the show, or just whatever the case is. And it's been just surreal the past few years. I'm sure these guys will have like questions.
For me, it was I was watching this guy streamed
TCK.
Down here, Noah's. He was in like 20s, and then I was like, oh, I kind of want to do this too, because I love the show and I'm driving my family nuts talking about it. And then lo and behold, he knew Jacob, and then Jacob reached out to me and asked me to be on a stream, and the rest.
So Noah, when did you start watching the series? Like,
I watched it back when it came out on YouTube Red, just to like. I really didn't even remember the Karate Kid movie. I watched the first one way younger, and I was in middle school at the time. Like I was like 13 or 12, and I watched it and I loved it. Watched season 2 in 2019. But then when it came on Netflix, I showed it to my dad, who really didn't want to watch it at first. He was like, no, they're going to ruin it. Like, I don't know. I actually had to show him a snippet of the school fight to get him to watch it. And he did, and we watched the whole show. And like me and my dad, this is what we talk about the most with each other, like all the time. What's going to happen this season? What's going to happen with Silver? What's going to happen? And yeah, then I started my channel and met all these guys. But yeah, I started on the YouTube Red days.
So you were like, you said 12, 13 when you started?
Yeah. And now I'm in college.
Yeah. So, I mean, you literally became like, you went from like a boy to a man as the story unfolds. That's the crazy part about That's the crazy part about you know, a show that goes on for like 6 years. It's what's crazy for the cast, I think, because it's like bigger than high school for them, because it's like been like 6 years, not just like the 4 years that you share with your friends in you know, in school. So it's crazy to see like this stage of life that you're in, and it's cool that it worked, you know, throughout those different periods. I don't know what about the rest.
Yeah.
I remember having conversations with Noah, G, and Evan, because they're always like the youngest out of the group here. It's very much like what Harry Potter was to some of us, because we grew up with it, is what it is to them as they've grown up with it. They've matured with the characters. And it's just interesting because we started the conversations when these guys were like way younger, and now they're adults. And I'm like, oh, that's how much time's passed.
Yeah. Darius, what's your background with the show and getting into it?
So I was a little late to the party. I think it was late 2019 for me, because my dad started watching it before I did, and he the Karate Kid trilogy, some of my formative movies, it was that in the original trilogy for Star Wars that he made sure to show me when I was like a little kid. So when he told me that there was, well, I had seen like the trailers and stuff for Cobra Kai like on YouTube and stuff. It just didn't interest me at the time, but I don't know what it was. Like around 2019, like kind of a little before the pandemic, he was watching it downstairs one day. I was like, okay, what's this? And he's like, it's Cobra Kai. It's a sequel to the Karate Kid. I'm like, oh, that show's on Netflix now. And I watched I think it was an episode of season 2, just without any context. And I was like, this thing's pretty good. I'm gonna go catch up on my own. And I didn't just catch up. By the next day, I had beat him to the season 2 finale.
Oh wow!
I had already beaten him there, and I was telling him he needed to watch the season 2 finale. So yeah, that's kind of where my love for this show started. And then season 3 wasn't out yet, so during the pandemic, I basically rewatched those first 2 seasons over and over. And then season 3 came, and yeah, then I met these guys because I needed to find someone to talk. I couldn't carry on conversations with my dad all the time. I had to find level that we did about my friends.
Yeah, you wanna like
watching other things.
Feel like you're just a crazy person talking about it and thinking about it just amongst yourself.
Exactly.
Well, it's another interesting thing is like again we're just fans of the movies and we're putting it together. And one of the things that another thing that just we realized is like this is a show that's great for like fathers and sons and different generations watching together. That wasn't like I don't have kids, John and Josh do, but like I don't feel like at any point they were like writing it for like, oh, let's have a show that our kids can watch. It was it was kind of a show for the kid in us, and then it just in the fan of our fandom for it. And it's just interesting. Like it became one of these generational shows, and I think like that's what Star Wars and what a lot of these other things are trying to do.
Yeah,
it's interesting because like Star Wars, like I'm such a huge Star Wars fan. Okay, I watched those, and there's a big overlap I've already talked about with Karate Kid in terms of. You could say Jedi Sith and Cobra Kai Miyagi-Do and there are like mentor characters and you're learning and going up, like Luke Skywalker is kind of advancing as a student. But Karate Kid is more emotional. Like when you watch it, you get choked up in a way that I don't think you do when you watch Star Wars. There's a couple moments in Star Wars where like I get emotional, like when the Yoda gets the Millennium Falcon out of the water, or Luke looks at the double sunset. Like there are emotional moments, but there's something more poignant about like
they don't have as much gravity as these moments.
Well, Daniel didn't have a father. Daniel feels helpless.
Yeah.
Daniel feel like it's just like Machio and Avildsen, who did Rocky. It's just more of a underdog character story. Than what Star Wars was actually trying to be, which was more like, just a different type of thing. But both of them are kind of morality tales. Like both of them, as a kid, you're watching and you're learning about good and bad a little bit. So there's a lot of overlap there. But yeah, it's been fun seeing like hearing stories of like I watched this with my dad or like because you don't usually have those types of things.
Yeah.
Glenn, what about you, man? Or Gian?
Yeah.
Yes, your name Glenn.
Glenn.
That's his new nickname.
You've just created a new meme.
Glenn.
I love it.
Thank you for that.
I remember I started watching the show when I was 15. I'm 20 now, so like around the pandemic before the Netflix move, it was still on YouTube Premium, and my dad watched the show before me. So around the time season 2 was coming out back in 2019, like he didn't get a chance to watch it. So like he said, like, well, we're in quarantine, might as well watch season 2. And he asked me if I wanted to watch it. And I said, you know what? Sure, why not? So I kind of just watched season 2 first of the show. and I just remember seeing Johnny and Kreese like duking it out in the dojo, and I was like, so enamored and so hooked to the show. And so like one of my favorite memories from like quarantine was watching Cobra Kai for the first time. Like there were some times where I was supposed to be doing schoolwork, but I was finishing season 1 like late at night, and then one of my favorite memories was like when me and my dad, he showed me the Karate Kid movies as well. And so like we would make like ice cream sundaes, and then like who can make the best one, and then we would watch like the Karate Kid and like theorize like, oh, this is like happened like in Cobra Kai, like what's gonna happen to Miguel in season 3. And like when the Netflix move happened, it just blew my mind. And then I met these guys and all that.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny because let me just tell you, like that Netflix move was a crazy experience. We shot season 3, the Okinawa, Chosen, Kumiko, the Vietnam flashbacks, and the finale with Daniel and Johnny coming together, and Kreese calling up somebody that you think could be Terry Silver. We shot that for YouTube, right? So like we had 2 seasons that came out on YouTube. We had the Miguel cliffhanger from season 2, and we shot this again, it was like, how do you top the school fight? We're like, okay, well, what about like a a fight that happens in 2 time periods that you're like intercutting, and that like one has an effect on the other. Cool. And Johnny and Daniel together, like that they formed together. Like that was the only way that we thought we could like kind of top the school fight. And every year we had that mentality. So like we finish in December of, I think it was 2019. Okay, COVID, unbeknownst to us, is starting in China and happening over there. But we're finished there, and we get the phone call from YouTube that they're basically stopping making originals. And like our show is as successful as you could be on YouTube. And they were like, listen, you've done everything the right way. We're sorry. It's just like we're kind of getting out of the streaming wars. And they were like, but we'll still put it out with a big push. And we said, no, wait a second. Like, you know what? Like we have this unwatched season, it'll help sell the show if we can, take it to another platform that we have a whole season shot that nobody's seen yet. And so we were like, okay, because it's December, business doesn't happen there. So it's like, okay, in the new year, we're going to try to sell this show. But for a period of time, we were like, I'm hoping it's Netflix. I don't know, and then when the new year hit, COVID happened pretty fast. At first, it didn't look like Netflix was interested, but like it was more like there were bigger fish to fry with the pandemic and trying to figure out what the world was going to be and how, what their slate and platform would be like. And so Netflix just kind of wasn't even accepting the calls. And we were like looking at other places. And I remember there being a period of time where it was just like, it would be so frustrating. Like there was a period of time where it's like, is it possible this show will just end like right here? Because it's not common to jump onto another platform. Ooh. It is a little tricky. It's a difficult business deal to make, and it didn't seem like places were, because Sony's involved and you have to share profits. It's not like the easiest kind of business thing. And so there was a period of time where I was like really nervous that like the show was going to end. There was a period of time where I felt like, oh my God, please, like CBS All Access, like, take on Cobra Kai. That was the thing. Like at the time, it was like they seemed interested, and we're like, hey, who cares what platform? We just want to keep telling the story. And then all of a sudden, Netflix was like, hey, like, we'll take your call, And then when we talked about it with them, it's like, this is the ideal situation. So that there was a lot going down like during those early months of the pandemic where the fate of the show was kind of a giant question mark. And we were like, we felt like we had a really good season that set up that. And we were like, I was so excited to bring Terry back. I was like, if you're going to like cut it off like right before that, I'm like this. So everything ended up working out amazingly because we really, not only did we get like the bigger stage and platform with Netflix, but it's like we kind of came onto Netflix in an awesome way with 20 episodes like that you could binge, and then you got to the Miguel ending if you were just getting there, and it's like 3 months later we have like our season 3. It was just like just perfect, and it was a rebirth for the show and for the fandom, and it grew, and obviously you guys kind of came together after it, so that's awesome, Gian.
Glenn.
Thank you so much.
Gian, aka Glenn. Glenn. So Evan, what's your like? Are you like similar in terms of coming in post Netflix or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm similar to Gene and Noah. I was quite young. I was only 14 when I first watched it, and now I'm turning 20 this year. It's surreal that I've grown up with it. Like Miguel's like my karate kid. It's surreal, really, and it's thanks to you guys. You're fans of the show. You think first for the fans. That's what you want to see, and that's can't be more appreciated than that. And my best friends. Well, one of my best friends got me into the show. Because I knew of the films anyway, but he said, "All right, there's the show, let's watch it." So we binged it, watched the films, then watched the series. We were so into it, and then the pandemic happened. Couldn't see what happened to Miguel, and then hit Netflix, and we just got so into it. And then met Jacob from like a stream, and got talking to the other boys, and it's like all from there. It's like this big family. We're all so versed into it. I was at the premiere for season 6. Such a good experience, and all of this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you guys. And it's quite sad, really, when you think about it, because it's just a TV show, but it's so much more than that. Than what you've given us. It's unbelievable, really. Look at it from the outside.
Yeah. Well, that's listen. That's why I'm like jumping on it here, because it is something that's special, and I'm like, I wanna be a part of it. I want to keep it going, and it's been fun. It's interesting seeing like the ages that you got into. So, what is the age range of you guys? Like, from who's the youngest? Who's the youngest?
Let's start from the oldest.
Well, let's just go. I'm going through the list. So Cody, how old are you now? You're 26.
26.
Jacob.
27.
27. Evan.
19.
19. Sensei Wolf. What about you?
I'm 24.
You're 24. Noah.
19.
19. Okay. All right, Crease. King Junior.
Well, he is the Crease of the group.
He is.
What is your what is it? Oh, you're
my name is Danny, but hello?
He's asking what's your age.
He's asking your age, Danny. Come on, man.
Sorry, Hayden.
Come on, let's go.
33.
Showing his age.
33. 33. All right, Gian.
I'm 20.
Yeah, 33.
20.
Yeah.
All right, RJ, what about you?
23.
23, and Darius? 21.
21.
Okay, so you got like from 19 to 33. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's I think that the story, can work on different age ranges. There's definitely like, it's interesting that a lot of you guys saw it as kind of teens and going into your 20s. Like, this was a franchise that was really, for me, it was like much younger. I would say like from 6 to 11, like to 12, like is when I kind of fell in love with the Karate Kid. And then like it left for a while. It left as I became a teenager, and in the 90s, like, and this was like the period of time where like Ralph and Billy just weren't in anything anymore, and it just felt like it was the society and everything had moved on. And it wasn't until like later on when I was in college and I started getting my 20s that like I remembered Karate Kid. I had a Karate Kid 2 video, like VHS, that I would watch, and I remembered like Terry Silver, and like that was crazy. Now that I think about it as an adult, how weird that was, that they were gonna kill Daniel. Like as a kid, you just accept it, and then as you get older and you're more critical, you can like make fun of it. Yeah, exactly. And so like we had this kind of comedic view of the Karate Kid based on this being this like thing that we felt like we had a common bond with. But the big thing was Johnny. Like he was such a unique, like striking character. And like what happened to him was something that we, talked about. And John and I actually wrote a movie back in 2005 that was it was called like The Gym Teacher, and it never got made, but it was kind of like Cobra Kai in the sense it was like a high school football player who's like had this like charmed like amazing life in the 80s and like was just merciless to nerds and just like had the hot girl in high school and the cool car and was just like the king of high school, and then years later he's like a loser, and it's like by being like the phys ed teacher in a school he kind of like gets his mojo and his life back. So like that's always been like the thing. We loved like the king of 80s high school like character, and that's what Johnny kind of represented. So yeah, no, it's just it's interesting seeing like how you relate to the story depending on what age you are and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think just to add on to what Evan was saying there, one scene that we asked about like season 6 and whatnot, there's many moments in the show, anything to do with Robbie and Johnny reconciling, the scene with Miguel and Johnny and the burger place in season 2, anything like that. But I think one scene that sticks for me, and I think all of us, is that Miyagi-Do locker room scene. I think it hits us way deeper than just regularly watching it, if that makes sense, because it brought all of us together. So in a way, it's all like we're all living vicariously through the characters. Like it's one last time that we're all going on this journey together. Hell, we even did it on stream. We repeated the lines to each other. And to have the show go on the out, as much as it's bittersweet that it's come to a conclusion, just to have it and just to bring all of us together, no matter what age we are, no matter what background we are. And I think a lot of all of us, we kind of had this show at a point when we were all kind of lost. So it really added something to our lives, and there's very few things that could ever do that. So once again, just thank you to everyone involved for this.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching. That Miyagi-Do locker room scene, I remember like the thing there was we knew where we were going with Cobra Kai winning in the end. So it was like the last hurrah, like that, kind of for Miyagi-Do, like, for the fandom to get, in that moment. It's funny because you think about it, like at the end, I'm assuming you guys, I mean, the intention is to be like, fuck yeah, Cobra Kai, like and you're 100% into Cobra Kai, but yeah, then in
I am Cobra Kai.
Yeah, exactly. But then in episode 9 and 10, it's like you're really like you're not even thinking that. You're like 100% for Miyagi-Do. And so it was good because like I didn't want to trash on Miyagi-Do. I don't want to trash on Daniel. That's the, not to. I don't want to get into Star Wars stuff.
I agree.
We all know. Y'all put Daniel during the ringer, man. Y'all.
Well, I'll just say when we started this, we could have done something where it was like Daniel. Like, I know people don't like the Daniel character as much in this story because of the other versus the originals. By design, I mean, like, and but that's because you're rooting for his rival. But like,
you're rooting for Johnny.
At no point did we like, I think, go against the character that we fell in love with. Everything made sense. Like, yeah, Daniel, is a dick to Johnny in season 1, but you totally understand why he would be if you have a daughter and all of a sudden Cobra Kai is back while you have a teenager, and like every time you see the Cobra Kai kids, they're causing trouble. Like, yeah, you'd be like, oh shit, I gotta, get my gi back on and bring Miyagi-Do justice to the valley. And it's
I think that's what was so great about season 5 for me personally, is as much as we all root for Johnny and whatever else, it reminded people who the Karate Kid actually is, like objectively speaking.
Yeah, exactly. And I know like I I've seen criticism over time about like, okay, we're you know, the Johnny Daniel back and forth and them arguing. I mean, like our attitude with that was, first of all, that we enjoy the comedy of them having two totally different perspectives and butting heads. So like that for us was always going to be there. I mean, and it is at the very end in our last scene at the sushi place. It's like they're still the same characters, right? But if you look at like the evolution of them, there is an evolution, and it's we're never just repeating ourselves. Like they only break up once. They do in season 4. There's only one time where they actually split up and say F off. Like they every time after that they'll get into arguments, but they learn from what happened in season 4, and it's more just like yeah. So I mean, for us, like things like in season 5 or season 6, it was like, okay, well, these are like the model was a married couple that hates each other, but they have the kids, and they for the sake of the kids are staying together. Like, and that was different than what we had in season 4, which was like, let's try to make this work, and then it's like, oh, this is never going to work, and they split up. So you know, we were always thinking like, we don't want to just repeat ourselves. But I get that, like, you just have this urge for them to be like, hey, let's just do the exact same thing and be together, like in sync. But our thing was always, well, you know, you have two totally different types of, like, Johnny and Daniel had their unique childhoods where they got like the karate magic, you know, from their respective senseis. And Johnny's never going to be able to be like Miyagi-Do, because your formative years in childhood matter. Like, and it's true. It's like your brain is elastic, and like you could learn languages like without having an accent in your youth that you can't. Like once you're older, you can learn Miyagi-Do, but you can't. It can't be second nature to you. Like Johnny's first, like his instincts are always going to be Cobra Kai. Daniel's are always going to be Miyagi-Do, and it's just kind of like, but you can learn enough about the other side to respect it, have an extra couple tricks up your sleeve, and more importantly, realize that, like, you know what, there's a value in having a counterpoint, and that's the balance of you know, of the valley.
I think regarding that, I have a question.
You gotta have one can't have one without the other.
In season 6, and it was episode 5 when one of my favorite scenes of the season, when Daniel splits up the Sam Tori fight because Tori's in a bad spot. I'm curious because it's been a debate between us and multiple people in the fandom. Like,
oh boy,
do you think the fight? You think Johnny was right where the fight should have continued, or you think it was the right thing for Daniel to stop the fight?
Good question.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously try to write it in a way where it's you don't feel like, well, one of them is totally off base. Yeah, you know, like, so, you know, I'm probably on Daniel's side in terms of you know, feeling that like you don't want to take negativity and use that for I mean, you know, it's the I'm probably, like, my instincts lean more towards like Daniel's point of view there, but that was what was fun about it, was like, you know, we always cared about not just redeeming the, like, Johnny or Kreese, but their philosophy itself, and that's the cool thing about it. Like we're like, you know, in Star Wars terms, I feel like there needs to be a Sith. I feel like this
there's always one that comes back every now and then,
like the justification of the dark side, and it's always painted in a certain light.
You need a yin and yang.
You know, I'll just say I've always rooted for the Sith the way I root for Cobra Kai. I just think they're more badass. I like that.
Cooler.
I like red lightsabers.
They got cookies.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's like that was a fun part of the show, is taking Cobra Kai and thinking about it in terms of like, well, what is the technique? And it is that, like, you have these emotions. And how do you deal with emotion? Like you can just kind of zen, like be like, okay, center yourself and let this go, and try to let
But
that
that
go.
may not work for someone else.
Or it's like, I need to, crush, this can and throw it against a wall and just get like, just let it out in a very emotional way. I think both exist in this world. And I think it's like, if we all just acted like super like, okay, let's just be at peace every time a bad thing happens.
Yeah,
And
that's
like,
not gonna work.
it's not human. And I think you kind of have both. And
That doesn't work.
So I think like depending on your on who you are, like I think Johnny was the type of guy that would be like, yeah, you know what, like just let her get this out of her system right now. And Daniel is obviously philosophically, has a different opinion, and also it's his daughter that's like in the on the mat with this bloodthirsty,
you gotta look from a parent's point of
karate
view.
team. So so
Point of view, like
that's my answer, Noah. What do you think?
No, that's a good answer. I always
Here we go.
I lean both ways because I think you wrote it really well where they both have good sides. I think like Daniel would have never given Tori a chance after that to be fight for captain, because look how quickly like they moved on. Like they were right after that scene, they said Tori's gone, Hawk's gonna take her spot. So I don't think Daniel.
Yeah, I think it was just like I just, our intention there was just like, this was like a big game coming up or a tournament, like you're in the middle of a season and it was like the first part one was kind of like the preseason of an NFL.
Can't rest.
Like, it was like, let's get our team ready for the war, and see who our starters are and our best players. And I'll say like that season was kind of like in some ways inspired by some of your guys' videos in terms of like the power rankings and who's better. It was like our opportunity to be like, okay, like let's do our own power rankings on the show and see like, all right, Robbie Miguel, like we know like people have those things. It's like, let's put them there. And I'll say again, because I know that there's been like, some, I've seen also some criticism about like, we kind of resolved the conflict at the end of season 5, which we did, but I guess we viewed it as like, okay, you saw the conflict resolved, but like to know it's resolved, you have to put friendships to the test, and put some stresses on it to make sure that the bonds will never be broken. And that's what season 6 really is. It's like, yeah, Robbie and Miguel are friends. Tori,
Finally.
and Sam have kind of squashed their beef at the top of the season. But it's like, let's put like the promise of a world tournament and all the competitiveness, that comes with that, into their lives to see like, are they going to fracture or are they going to come together? And it was like, okay, well, they should kind of fracture a little bit, but then come together stronger than they've ever been. That's like the thing there. And I just felt like with Tori, it was kind of like, okay, we're getting ready for this. And like when you have a death, like in somebody so close to you, it's kind of like that person's going to take a while to get their head back in the game. And, they're very emotional, and like let her. And also, like, if she's not answering calls and doing stuff like that, it's the attitude of like, she's in a bad place. Let her work this out right now. But like, we have to figure out what to do right now because we're on this train already. That was the intention.
But when you,
Can I ask you
John,
this, Hayden?
Yes.
really, Danny?
Sorry. Yeah. Danny, you want to do
Yeah,
first?
Hayden. Yeah, Hayden. So let me ask you this. So you already said that Sam is the greatest female fighter. Now, like, who's the best male fighter, like, for the boys? Like, so we can just like end the debate here and now. Like, is it Robbie or is it Miguel? Like,
It's Bert.
It's Bert.
Yeah, I think it's Bert.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, just the intention was.
okay.
I treat every fight on the show and all that stuff like First of all, I listen to you guys. You know, the Sam is the goat stuff and Robbie Miguel.
Yes.
I mean, it's
We made it.
I love all that stuff because it was intentional. I mean, like we're trying to create this world where it's like you get invested in everybody, and you know, at times it's like you get in. I feel like Robbie in the later seasons becomes kind of like the natural underdog of the show, and it's like, and then Tori becomes the natural underdog of the show. But because they come in, there is like a portion of fans that are like, well, wait a second. No. Like the OGs, you know, and you start to get like the, you know, fun, you know, dialogue about like who is better. And like I said, you know, that was the point of part one is seeing, you know, playing that stuff out. And of course we had to do, I guess like, you know, I'll just say with like Robbie and Miguel, for example, when we're putting that together, it's like on the one hand, okay, well, let's see, we have to make a decision who is better, right? And what goes into that? Well, first of all, we know we're ending with Miguel, you know, in episode 14 winning the whole thing. Like we're not like, you know, we know where we're going to end this whole show. So this is, you know, in a lot of ways, it's like it's Robbie's win on the show. Like he needed to have a win. And I think that this was, you know, you don't know it at the time, but it was going to be the last time he has like a clear cut, like, okay, he is the best. And you could end the show like now, you know, the show's over and you could argue that like he could be the best still, you know, because he did beat the best, you know, but when you watch it at the end of the day, like, I think it was intended that these guys have had so much training and have poured their hearts into this that they've reached a level where they're very, very evenly matched. And to the point where if something is happening in their personal lives that throws them in a way, that's the deciding factor. And they both going into that fight had issues. So it was kind of like they were both like off their game a little bit. And so it really led to a like, well, what's going to happen? And it was Tori coming in there and get, you know, and Robbie seeing that gave him like, that balanced him in the right moment. And that helped him go over the top. And, you know, who's to say like if Axel didn't, fuck up his leg and everything, that he wouldn't have been able to balance himself and knock him out in the last round and be the champion.
I think he wouldn't have even had a chance to come back because of the point difference. But in the later fights, like literally Tori comes like 30 points against Zara. Like it was.
Yeah, he could have. It was possible. Listen, that was the the points. I mean, you can imagine it's the least fun part of the show is figuring out. At the end of the day, we just wanted Johnny back and Cobra Kai back, and this is what we wanted, and we had to figure out the most believable way to get there, and we like it. The points had to be such that it was conceivable with a bunch of knockdowns that Miyagi-Do could win, but it also made sense that like, you know, with adding to the point deficit from the Robbie thing, that it's just even more of a long shot and they feel like it's over. So, you know, that was the mentality there.
So we'd like to add on to that, and I'm sure these guys will agree, like with all of the love we have for Rocky and like Rocky and Apollo's dynamic in that series, I love that on any given Sunday, you know, yes, people, we've argued about this for years of Rocky and Miguel. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect our life. But at the end of the day, they push each other, and whenever Miguel's off, Robbie steps in. Whenever Robbie's off, Miguel steps in. It's like that sort of yin and yang where they've got each other's backs, and when one is out, the other steps in. And having that sort of balance in pop culture, I think, has kind of been lost on people in the last few years. So to have it in this show where it reminds people that sometimes you need that friend to give you the push, they can't bring it home without each other. And in season 5, that moment when Johnny looks at them and says, you know, with both of you on the same page, we now actually have a chance. Their combined efforts brought it home as a family.
Yeah, and you know what? Like that's the one thing about series that I think one of the things that a series has on a movie you know, I'm a huge Tarantino fan, and I was listening to him talk about the difference between, you know, movies and TV, and the thing that he didn't, you know, I don't think, you know, he loves series, but but he's a movie guy, and I'm a movie guy too. So, and we treated Cobra Kai like a movie, like every season was a new Rocky entry, you know, sort of. And we always were building to episode 5, and then in episode 6 we'd build to 10. You know, like that was always, we were going towards something the way a movie does. It wasn't just episodic. But the thing about a series is you just have more time for characters to grow, and it's just even that much more rich. I describe it as like a good series, you know, versus a good movie is like the Sistine Chapel versus the Mona Lisa. It's the great works of art, but one is bigger and grander. And, you know, yeah, movies are bigger and grander in terms of their budget and you know, taking the visual medium to the next level. But on series, you can, you know, have character arcs that are just, that take you on this journey to the point where, like, you know, if you've been on this journey and you're watching season 6 and like the end of, you know, episode 13, when Johnny gets Cobra Kai back, it's been such a journey. And then when Miguel is looking at Axel and he's like, you're like, you hurt my brother and you're a fucking dead man. Like, think about the journey of like where Miguel was in season 1, like being like a weak, like kind of, you know, weak kid, and also the rivalry with Robbie to get to like that point. It's just like, and now you're just loving Miguel for how he's looking at Axel there, and like, and you know, it's because of Robbie, you know, and because of Sam, you know, like, you know, this guy's talking to his girl a little bit, but like it's more like you really feel like he built up a brotherhood with Robbie that he's now going in like with Cobra Kai energy, and that's just so fun. And it's the type of thing that like it takes multiple seasons to like have that kind of satisfaction. And I don't know, that was fun for us, you know, seeing that stuff.
That's awesome.
See, that's one thing that I really enjoy about this show is the fact that you've took so many characters and started them in a completely different place where you think they're going to go, but they end up in something even better. Because one of the things I've always said, right, I've always been a big, massive Robbie fan. He's the reason I got into the show. Is I followed his character even when everybody else hated him. Right, I knew people hated him, but for me, I like the fact that he went from that lost kid that didn't really have a father figure like Daniel, because his dad was always, you know, out partying and his mum was just leaving him alone to cook cold pizza, basically. And it's like, oh, okay, fair enough. And so it was relatable in that sense. But then when you actually see where he gets to after that point, is where it's like he's finally found everything. And that's why my biggest favorite part of season 6 was simply the fact of him and Johnny having that conversation where it's like, if I fight with honor and it means that I finish second, that's okay with me, because I'm focusing on not what I've lost, but what I've gained. And I think that's such a powerful message for people to understand, because so many young people especially feel like they've lost so much already. And the fact that they can even see a character on the TV being like, you can get it back. If you do the right things, you work hard, you can win even bigger than when you could ever imagine. And then we all know the contract that Robbie got, it was pretty hefty, so you know he's set up for life as well, which is even better as well.
Yeah, the cool thing is this was, and it's, you know, it's, you know, frustrating aspect of Star Wars is that like I feel like
I feel you, Hayden.
No, I'm just saying, like, they're both stories that introduce a new generation. And the thing with Cobra Kai is that it's like, rather than just like, hey, let's bring this back and play the same old song again, we wanted to make it where it's like, okay, this is the next generation learning from the previous generation. Like how what you want is not just to be your father, you know, or your parents, but the better version. You know, like that, like you, all the mistakes that your parents made, they kind of teach you so that you're like the 2.0 better version of your parents. And I think that that's like the point of that scene with Robbie is, okay, you have a situation where it's not the exact same thing because Johnny didn't get injured in the past, but his high school life ends with a loss at the All Valley tournament and a frustration, and yet what makes him at this generation better than Johnny's generation is he's been taught the mistakes, he's gone through this journey, and he's not going to go on the downward spiral like Johnny. I mean, even without the the endorsement deal or having an opportunity to continue on in karate, which is awesome for him, it's just like he's going to be balanced. He's not he's learned enough from this stuff that he's not going to go on the downward spiral the way his dad did. And that was kind of like story wise for us, as because we have to pick and choose who wins. We don't want it where it's like, oh, Miguel and Robbie tied, and it was just kind of like our feeling was the most satisfying ending would be Miguel winning for Robbie, and with Robbie on his mind, and also Robbie having the moral victory, and also giving him a legit on the mat victory earlier in the season. So that was the best we could do, having to pick and choose our favorite characters and going with the winner.
That's awesome. That's
all right. I think one more thing, and then we'll probably round off.
It should be RJ because he hasn't said anything.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Wait, what do you want me to say?
One more question.
What are you gonna say, Cody? I don't
something.
No, go ahead.
Why do you? I'll ask you. Like, why do you like Sam so much? What's it?
Oh, I think Sam gets overly hated, in my opinion. I think that from my viewpoint of watching the show, I think a lot of characters have made mistakes just like her, but there's arguably characters that have made even worse mistakes, and that's just how I have felt. And I also feel like she was a She's a really good fighter, so I like Sam. So,
yeah, no, like Tori's done some pretty unforgivable things in my book. Like, I mean, yeah, I'm like, what? Like, what? Where does the Sam hate come from? I'm forgetting. It's like, it's because people like Miguel and they broke up. Like, what?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it was.
Well, there might be one.
It was meant to be like,
like
it was meant to be like Miguel kind of had a Johnny, like Johnny taught him the style of Cobra Kai from the 80s, and Miguel became like a Johnny from the 80s, good and bad. And as a result, it screwed up his mojo with Sam. And so it's kind of, it's not Sam's fault, that I don't blame Sam for kind of not wanting to be with Miguel. And then it's just like, hey, you know what? You're training with Robbie in the backyard every day. Shit happens there. So, but is that, I feel like that's the reason why, like, people don't like her, because she hooked up with Robbie in season 2. Is that right? Or
did on Rob.
That and a lot of other things. People just
we've been trying to figure this out.
Well, I know it's like Watch Party was the one that like always was and
someone had to say it.
I'm a big fan of his stuff, and I think everything he's done, there's definitely like a
I've tried to get an answer
a point of view.
At least a year or two now. He still won't like say why. Like,
what was that, RJ?
Well, he's made a lot of videos on Sam. He still hasn't said like the real reason why. I think there's a deep meaning why.
We need a debate between you two.
Hey,
well, he's already lost before it started.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we're trying to make we were trying to make it where you root for every character, with the exception of Tori. Like we did bring, like we like bringing a character in, and the debate is, are you in their shoes or are you in the shoes of the person dealing with them? And Tori was somebody that we brought into the world, really to give Sam a physical threat, like, because there hadn't been like in Next Karate Kid. It's just like there's, it's like the boys in school that are like giving her a hard time, and it's just so weird, like to have like boy on girl violence and having to have the girl like take on a bunch of guys, and so it was just like, well, we wanted to have like the female bully, and she's introduced as that, and so you're meant to not like her, and that it's funny because I've seen some of the, now people have their like rankings of all the seasons and everything, and I'm, I can tell you why I like each season.
You know what, Hayden, you're a king of pop culture now.
You've been knighted.
Why is that? Why am I the king of pop culture right now?
That's our group name.
Our group, yeah, that's our group name.
No, I'm saying why. What did I do?
That's the name of the group.
Just nuanced discussion.
Nuance and context is our forte, and you're a man with it.
Yeah, well, I know the context of every single thing that we did, and well, like I'll just say, like season 2. So season 2 is very kind of special because for John, Josh, and I, because it was the season that we had like the least amount of money to work with, like as in a budget. We had to like, there's a reason why there's no like Tyler that season and stuff like that. It's just like you had to. We had to pick and choose like what to do while trying to make it bigger, and how do you top season 1? And it was like the school fight to us was this thing that we felt could be like, it's because that's where the show could die in season 2. It's like we had a great first season, and if we shot the bed season 2, there would be no future. Everybody felt after season 1 that was like, that was great. How long can you actually do this? And we thought about it ourselves. We had we thought about all these things with Terry Silver and where we wanted to go and being able to get into like Chosen and all that stuff. But we purposely like didn't want to like do that stuff in season 2. We wanted to have more to build to at the end, to keep the show going, but it needed to be good in and of itself. And the school fight to us was that thing that we felt like, if we do this the right way, people who watch season 1 will it will be an episode worthy of that, of like, what people loved about the show in season 1. And a big part of that is Tori and like bring her into the story, and Kreese, and all those things that like that second season. Once we did that season and people liked it and they liked how it ended, and you had this cliffhanger making you want to see another one, that set everything in motion for the next 4 seasons. So it's like, it's always going to get, it's always tough because season 1 always has something special. Season 6 is always going to have something special, but like season 2 was the pivot point where we really, created this, this new rivalry that took things, that added new branches that we could explore. So anyway, but season 6, we're very happy with how it all went down. I know like there's, debate about like breaking it up into 3 parts. I'll just say that was something that we suggested. It was like they wanted to break it up into 2 parts. And we were like, we felt like 3 parts made more sense because we always write to an episode 5. We felt like each part would have a little bit of a cliffhanger, and also liked the idea of keeping the party going a little longer. And it's now like 2025. A fresh batch of Cobra Kai episodes came out. We're talking about it, and this has been a journey that started. Back in 2018, and for us, 2016 and 17 when we were conceiving it and came out. But like, we liked the idea of there being, this multi-year journey for fans. And it's been fun. I hope you guys, keep the fandom going. Now you could go back and watch the episodes, like knowing how it's going to end and seeing things like in a different light. Like, the first episode of season 6 is interesting to watch Stingray's pitch to Johnny to like take over Cobra Kai,
Yeah.
Knowing where it all goes. Like that was for us.
I was saying to these guys how I rewatched some Kreese scenes the other day, and because of from season 2, and because where he ends up now, it's just fascinating to look at those scenes with that new context added on.
Yeah, so it's like, and unlike Star Wars, we knew where we were going. And I love you. I don't like. I'm not dissing. Like, I'm not dissing them as much as praising us. Like
maybe you need to take over.
Well, I don't know if that's possible, but even like Star Wars, the first movie, like he did not know that Vader was the father. Like when you can now watch it and it makes sense, but like when he was writing that dialogue about
he made that
about
Darius knows all that. He made all that stuff up.
Yeah, he made that stuff. Like a lot was conceived afterwards. Whereas like we knew where things were going to end. We knew that Tori was going to be redeemed. When we brought her in, it wasn't just like, oh, let's throw her in as a bully and then leave it. So like there was purpose for everything. So you could go back and now knowing the purpose, see the episodes in a different light. And so you guys should, I want to keep the fandom going. It's not going to be the same exact thing because the show is over, but it could be a different thing in terms of retrospective. And then look, hopefully we do have new content, new spin-offs, new stuff that like, hey, anything that we do is gonna, that comes out would be something that's further expanding the story, whether it's like continuing on or delving back into the past or bringing back the vibe and the feel of whether it's mentors and students or all the things that are in the original Karate Kid. Those are things that like we're not done with. We like those like people just, it's like a Rocky movie. Like we like that kind of story. And so are there ways that we can create stories like that give you those types of vibes, but are a little bit different, a little bit like, have a different twist, and don't affect, like Cobra Kai is what it is, and it's not going to be like, oh, okay, well, we meet and Johnny's a loser again, like in a future thing. Like we will, we're going to try to keep the party going through spinoffs and stuff like that. We have nothing official to say on that, but hopefully we do that, and hopefully as you guys are in your 20s and Danny is as you get into deeper in your 30s, I'm just saying, like hopefully you guys, it doesn't matter how old you get, like you still want to jump into this universe and have fun with it the way that we do. And if you guys continue to do that, I may, pop into the comments section or something like that. So thank you guys for the fandom. Welcome, it's just so fun. Like we've talked about it being a special thing. We appreciate it. It's just cool. It's so cool for us to see people talk about the characters and just hope that you guys keep doing that even though the show's over.
Yeah, we'll still be talking about it.
It's a big thank you.
Thank you, Hayden.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Hayden, for coming on. We appreciate you, man. You're welcome anytime. And can't believe the show's over, but yeah, we're gonna keep it alive, and I'm sure we're never gonna stop talking about it. But
never.
All right.
Cobra Kai never dies.
Cobra Kai never dies.
Thank you all, guys all for joining the stream, and we'll catch